Serious retired soldiers on Reddit. What was something that you saw or experienced that you never shared with anyone? Also veterans. Thank you for your service and dedication to this country. If you were in a different country's military, you'll still have my respect for serving your country. Edit. I live in America. For clarification. Edit. Wow, thanks for the gold whoever it was. Edit. It's amazing in the bad way to see how many people are blatantly disrespectful towards veterans and soldiers. As if it is them that is the problem. So many people don't realize what they take for granted. My very first patient in Afghanistan was a 10-month girl. The father brought her to our gate asking for help. We checked her out, and she is literally missing all of the skin from shoulder blade to waist on her back left side. Burned to the bone. Dad tells Terp that she tripped and got cut up by gravel. Clearly she is burned. I can smell it still today. I can remember the screech she made. The charred skin I had to remove. And that asshole just sat in the corner. Nothing I can do to right the situation other than do what I can for her. That single moment definitely set the tempo for the following 9 months. Why did he burn her? In Afghanistan it's not uncommon for the father of a screaming baby to dip the baby into boiling water to stop them from crying. Saw the same thing during my time there. Father claimed he spilled, but it was clear she was dipped. Why would they think that would make a kid stop crying? One of my best buds got drunk and fell off the barracks. They labeled it an accident. It was actually a suicide over a girl. I know, not too interesting, but I thought I'd share. Never told anyone. Always felt guilty. That sucks, bro. I've witnessed 2 suicides in my military career. One in a very similar circumstance to that. Alcohol, young men, and breakups are a very bad combination. Not a retired soldier, but a naval hospital corpsman with a marine unit who deployed to Sangir Valley, Afghanistan in 2012. I've seen a lot of casualties in my short time in the Navy, but no amount of love tissue training could prepare me for my first no-speak trauma patient. It wasn't even one of my Marines who got hit. I was chilling at the battalion aid station with a group of other corpsmen getting our speep together and talking about who would survive a zombie apocalypse when we got a call that we had a patient coming in. This was about 1 week into the deployment. We had just gotten to the FOB and the majority of us were pushing out to patrol bases the next few days. I was one of the most senior corpsmen there, HM3/E4, so I was in charge of leading the team and treating this patient. We had a PA there, but he was more interested in sleeping and trusted out medical knowledge to be able to treat this patient properly. When the Vic came in, I ran outside to get a good look at the patient before he came in, and I was not expecting what I was, an older gentleman probably around 70, hard to tell, and he had stepped on an IED and had bilateral above the knee amputations. Tourniquets had been aptly and bleeding controlled by the time he got into the bays. My team attached monitors, applied secondary tourniquets, and got 4th access while I secured the airway. After what seemed like seconds we had finished our first and second assessment and we were waiting in the bird when the propac stopped reading any vitals. I remember looking down at the man and seeing that there wasn't any life in his eyes. We attempted CPR for a few cycles, but without blood products it was useless. I called it. We were removing all of the interventions we had done when we rolled him over, and I noticed a small incision below his buttock, and above where the tourniquet was applied there was a small slice where some shrapnel had flown up and severed his femoral. This was my team I was supposed to lead, and I killed this patient because I couldn't get level-headed enough to remember the simple things I learned in CTM/TCCC. I have had many trauma patinates since that day, but this one sticks to me the most. I have stumbled upon shacks full of dead and dying people, had friends get shot and blown up, but my first casualty haunts me every night. I have since used this particular patient as a learning mechanism, now that I'm a seasoned instructor of TCCC, so that hopefully my students don't make the same mistake. I'm on mobile, so sorry for formatting. But this is gonna be buried anyways. Also I get out in 12 days. Super stoked. TLDR. Killed my first trauma patient in country. Kind of a bitch about it. To be fair, you didn't kill the IED, did With those kinds of wounds at his age, I can't imagine that he could have made a decent recovery anyway. I doubt these words will help at all, but I hope that time and perspective allow you to heal from this. I served in the military here in Finland as required by law, and there was this guy who chain smoked a lot, and we called him Skorsten Swedish. Fortunately his father had killed his mom and then hung himself while Skorsten was young. Skorsten was always depressed, but he got along and we were good friends. Then 5 years after we got out, I get a message from an army friend who says that Skorsten had hung himself because his girlfriend had left him for another guy. I've accepted that there was nothing I could have done, but it still haunts me. Sometimes when I go out for a smoke, I still remember how he would ask me for a cigarette because he had misplaced his own. So I light a cigarette for him and place it on the side of the ashtray. That's my way to remember him. Edit. A big thanks to all who replied. You made my day. Hell, you made my week. My grandfather was a combat medic who fought on seemingly all of the Japanese-held islands during WW2. We always noticed he poured himself a glass of gin and a glass of whiskey. He would always whisper something to himself, then take the entire glass of whiskey in one swig, then proceed to enjoy his glass of gin slowly. Nobody ever questioned it. After he passed away, my uncle revealed to us why. While attacking one of the beaches, a dear friend of my grandfather's dove on top of him to shield my grandfather from an explosion. My grandfather was unscathed, but his friend was killed instantly. Whiskey was apparently the friend's one true love, since he didn't have a sweetie back home. My grandfather enjoyed the glass of whiskey every day plus his gin for 50 years until his passing. I lived in a safe house in the Cabal Green Zone a couple of years ago, working on ISAF HQ, but moving throughout Cabal every day. The street from my compound to ISAF was filled with pedestrian traffic and these kids who would try to sell foreigners whatever trinkets they could. I got to know them, since I was there every day. I got them clothes for winter, random snacks from the chow hall, and we played Angry Birds together. They spoke with me, brought me scarves I asked for, and little gifts every once in a while. They also kept the other peddlers away. One day a kid 12 to 14 years old from elsewhere came to the area with a bomb in his backpack. He intended to kill foreigners moving in the area or target one of the compounds. The local kids noticed him and apparently told him to get lost, and he detonated his bomb. 4 kids were killed along with the bomber and a couple of adults. A dozen or so injured maybe. I knew each one of the kids. Kushi, a little girl who was learning to skate. Noab, who, in my view of things, looked to have a hard crush on one of the other girls who was killed. Another boy had a brother a year or so older who looked just like him. I saw the one killed and saw the other a week later, trying to sell things again. It freaked me out. I was at the site of the bombing not 30 minutes before I felt it while inside ISAF. Seeing the bodies after was a mistake. I didn't need to be there. I walked by the site every day until I left that base. The night of the attack I could still smell blood and the damp smell of wet Cabal dust mixed together. Every day I went by I could see their bodies and the surrounding gore in my head. I have seen the aftermath of VBIEDs in Iraq where hundreds were killed, but something about knowing those faces so well. Kids that would have done well if not born into such a backwards peephole. It didn't help that right after my ex told me I deserved to see those things, since I chose to be there again. Sorry for rambling, but I'm not sure which aspects of it all to tell. This is where the bomb went off only a few days before it actually happened. The boy's Noab, oldest of those killed. I don't remember the girl's name, but she is the one Noab liked. I always loved seeing them together, because it just seemed wonderful to see a couple of kids flirting with one another in a place where you just don't expect that. The bomb detonated in front of those steps by the pole and both metal gates on the sides of the shop were completely shredded by the blasts. Edit. Word/picture/ and thank you all for the kind words. It's really sobering how a little bit of name, a brief glimpse into someone's life, and suddenly their death means so much more to us. That's the value of this thread, I think. If anything, we see so much about this stuff on TV, in the media. It's talked about until it's no big deal. But it's a huge peeping deal. Marizo, because all these people have lives, just like we do. and every one of them was cut short. I haven't told anyone this entire story as it isn't something I'm comfortable talking to people about face to face. But I feel it's probably something people should know and think about at least. I was deployed to a place called the Triangle of Death in Iraq in a little town called Yusufia. We had been there for 6 months with a lot of intense fighting, and were set to rotate to southern Iraq in a much less active spot. We were set to be replaced by the 502nd I, part of the 101st Airborne. They had been a large part of the initial invasion of Iraq against Saddam's forces. But this was 2005, and was a much different war. When you transition units in the military, there is a period where you integrate front seat/back seat rides where you show the incoming unit your current operations. I happened to be at an outpost by one of 2 remaining bridges across the Euphrates River when this started. We tried to caution them, show them the ropes, but they didn't want to listen to any of us. They kept saying we have a destiny along with other hyper-aggressive statements. They didn't even seem to see the Iraqis as human beings. They were just like, we are gonna f*** this place up and f*** them. Rape, kill, pillage, and burn. Whoa. Across the street from this particular outpost was a Iraqi guy and his family who owned the small farm around outpost. They had been really good to us, pointing out IEDs on roads as well as running and grabbing us food and supplies when we couldn't get any. For example, our supply truck was destroyed by an IED one time, so all we had were MREs to eat. We talked to the farmer and gave him a shopping list and money, and he bought us food at the local marketplace. He was a great guy and did stuff like that for us all the time. We took the 502nd guys on a foot patrol and the farmer came out of his house, greeting us as he usually did, making his way towards us. We waved and started talking to him. When he went to shake the hand of one of the 502nd privates, the private just hauled off and punched him in the mouth, shouting "f***ing sand nigger." Our platoon sergeant restrained him and sent him back to the outpost with my sergeant and I to escort him while he tried to placate the farmer. We took that private to his sergeant, who congratulated him. When our platoon sergeant got back, he tore them a new one, but they didn't seem to care. I wasn't privy to the conversation between my platoon sergeant and his, but it didn't seem to have any impact either. Their attitude persisted until we finally left to our new location. Turns out, these same people were these guys. They murdered that farmer's family a few months after we left and raped his daughter. As if this wasn't enough, a few months prior to this, I had been injured when my truck rolled over during a firefight. I was the gunner maybe 200 meters from where the killings took place. I had to be medevaced to Baghdad where I recovered for a few weeks. When the truck rolled over, I lost my wallet in the dirt out there in what we called Iraqi moon dust, which is a powdery silt type soil you find all over. Flash forward to a week or 2 after the killings took place. I receive a package from Sergeant Green. It's my wallet mailed March 12, 2006, the same day as the killings. I recognize it's highly unlikely it happened just like this, but I can't help but wonder if they found my wallet on their way to commit the murders, or even if they mailed it just before it happened. I'm not a religious person, I'm an atheist, but I like to think that it was perhaps the universe's way of trying to remind them of the front seat, back seat period with our unit where we had a simple message for them: treat people with respect and like human beings. It is all they want. I still have the wallet, I've had it since high school. Old Calvin Klein leather wallet my sister gave me. It reminds me of the farmer and his family. I can't help but wonder if maybe we had been more focused on getting our message across to that 502nd group, if this could have been avoided. Maybe we were in too much of a hurry to leave to safer territory that we neglected something that might have made a difference. We even had the option to volunteer to stay in Yusufia with the 502nd if we wanted, but I declined. Not out of fear of combat as I was comfortably numb to it at that point, but because I just wanted to go relax and was homesick. It makes me think that I could have made a difference, but didn't because of something simplistically selfish. It's probably silly to think that, and perhaps a bit cliche, but it is what I think. Probably the story that got to me the most